Hello and welcome to Content That Converts Strategies for Each Stage of the Buyer's Journey. I'm your host, Josh Hines, founder and CEO of Continuify. We're currently going live, so we're going to give people a couple minutes to join. While we wait, let me give you a quick introduction to the brand. I launched Continuify after spending 15 years in a variety of marketing roles. The brand focuses on SaaS brands utilizing HubSpot in their integrated marketplace. We offer a fractional subscription model that gives you access to unlimited marketing and revenue operations with no scopes, no quotes, and no billable hours. You simply submit and prioritize requests and then consider them done. We'll meet once a week to collaborate with your point of contact and share updates on requests and get feedback for upcoming work or answers to things that are potentially in a bottleneck. So regardless if you're needing someone to simply segment and send out promotional emails to even building out an entire channel partner program, automating your customer lifecycle marketing, or measuring attribution to understand what's actually working, it's all one simple subscription away. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's jump into it. First and foremost, housekeeping. This video is being recorded and will be available on the Continuify website as well as YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so that we can get access to all the bells and whistles there and make better sharing experiences for you. So that's housekeeping. Let's jump into today's topic, content marketing. All right. So my promise to you by the end of this webinar is that you'll be ready to create the content necessary to take someone from I didn't even know I had a problem or that you existed to this was the best decision I've made after buying your platform. Today's agenda, we're going to be going through 4 different steps. Today, you'll learn how to understand the buyer's journey and personas that you'll be attracting with your content marketing, understanding the most popular content types, and then understanding what content to use and when, and then lastly, how to measure your content marketing conversions. So before we jump into the meat and potatoes, I just want to say hey and share a little bit about who I am. I've spent the last 15 years working with numerous SaaS brands at different stages, from seed funded to 50 million ARR. And then on the other end, I've also worked at corporate America, working for brands like Red Hat and IBM, where I managed increasing landing page conversion rates and executing global marketing campaigns. With that in mind, I've seen things at entirely different extremes, from trying to bootstrap to everything to having a specialist for every single role. So I understand how processes and structures allow you to scale into incredible heights. A quick fun fact about me, and I do get this a lot, but yes, I actually do like doing HubSpot operations and building systems as an INTJ personality trait. It's kind of my means of operation. However, I wasn't always this way. There was a time when I spent way too much time doing marketing and revenue operations manually. I didn't necessarily understand how one thing impacted another because I started my career as a specialist, especially in SaaS, where a customer moves from one department to another, but each department builds upon the previous one. And more importantly, I didn't understand how to read the data to understand if what I was doing actually worked. I just did a lot of things and hoped things clicked and came together. So jumping back into today's topic, you're not here to learn about me or Continuify. You're here to learn about content marketing. So to kick this conversation off, I'm going to talk about the 4 top mistakes that I typically see when people are trying to create content and keeping their revenue generation stagnant because they have the wrong content. So the first mistake I see a lot of people do is that they're all in on the 5%. If you've been on LinkedIn or in marketing recently, it seems that everybody's talking about this 95-5 rule. The idea being that only out of the entire 100% possibility of people that you could engage with that are in your total addressable market, only 5% of them are actually ready to buy. And with the popularity of high intent tools these days, it seems that everybody's gotten very good at figuring out who those 5% are. And because everybody's focused on that 5%, you have a lot of companies screaming at a handful of decision makers and then wondering why they're frozen in their decision making or the buying cycles are extremely long. It's because, if you haven't heard of this, it's called the paradox of choice. It's a TED Talk that by Barry Schwartz, if you guys want to take a listen to it. But the idea of it, the concept of the paradox of choice, is when given too many options, people inevitably choose nothing because they're afraid of making the wrong choice. So by everybody going in hard on this 5% of the market that's actually ready to buy, you're giving them this paradox of choice that they don't necessarily know what to do. So what they typically do is try to figure out another problem to focus on versus the problem, the immediate problem that you're trying to help them solve with your solution amongst all your competitors and different people that are trying to solve the same problem in a different type of way. So this is the mistake I see a lot of people do, is that they go all in on this 5%, the sales decks, the demos. Yes, you need all of this stuff, but it's like if you're excluding all of the other types of content and only focusing on this 5%, it's going to leave you with a lot of gaps in your buyer's journey strategy. So moving on to the second mistake. All right. So the second mistake I see a lot of companies do, and this kind of builds off of this 5%, is that everything is sales focused versus education. There's a lot of stats out there right now that basically are sharing the same idea that most buyers are going to spend at least 75% of their time researching a company before they even talk about sales. If all of your webinars and your marketing and everything is very bottom of the funnel, sales focused, and you're not educating people, you are going to be left out of the conversation altogether. Because by the time they are consolidating that list of the companies they want to work with, those companies that they probably want to work with are the ones that shared a lot more value and education at the front end, that built that trust and rapport. And if you're just a salesperson or building sales content, you're going to be left out of that conversation entirely. And it's going to be a very uphill battle, especially if you're doing just the 5%, where you're just aggressively going after people with just, hey, I'd love to jump on a demo with you, or hey, I'd love to jump on a sales call with you. That's going to get ignored. But if you play the long game and build out education, and this is, I feel like the same reason why the last year and a half, we've seen this huge rise in product marketing, where a lot of brands are going heavy with hiring product marketing and creative directors. And it's just this idea that you want to front load a lot of your education so that by the time it is time to talk sales and someone's raising their hand saying, hey, I want to talk to sales, they pretty much, it's hard, like the more difficult objection handling and more of a comparison of you versus one of your competitors versus trying to explain what you can and can't do with your platform. I think that's why, again, why everybody's hiring product marketers and trying to understand how to position themselves and share this information on the website, that people can learn about the platform and capabilities and functions and outcomes, versus making that gated and only accessible via sales, which most people don't want to talk to a salesperson until they're actually ready to make a decision. So sales versus education. The third mistake I see a lot, and this is also in regards to the rise in popularity of social media, is I feel like a lot of brands lost touch of what they're trying to accomplish. It seems, especially as you hire social media managers and influencers and those types of roles, that all of a sudden now it's like, who can get the biggest following on social media? And it's like, yeah, it's cool, it's fun, but in my mind, it's a lot of vanity metrics. It seems like a lot of brands, they went to this entertaining situation where it's like they're just trying to, like, have people's attention, but by no means are your followers people actually want to buy your product or your platform or your solution or whatever you're offering. They're just merely following your page because you do funny stuff that's interesting to them, or gives them those feel good feelings and entertains them. There's no long-term intent to ever even buy your product. And I think a lot of brands got caught up in this, where it was they hire influencers and they hire a social media manager, and then all of a sudden it's just about platform engagement and follower count. And neither one of those actually has a one-to-one correlation with revenue generation, which is technically what you should be going after as a business owner. So I think that's the third mistake, especially as people start going heavy on social media, which it seems that today's world, that's the modern day soapbox. If you're not using social media, you're not going to be able to engage with people as easily, especially if you're wanting to attract the 95% that's not actively ready to buy now, and you're just trying to get in front of them and catch their attention and get that interest to say, hey, like, there is something here that you might not be aware of. But it is a very slippery slope for that to just turn into entertaining as you're trying to increase your follower count and your engagement on the platform, that you start to find yourself, oh, well, this is the type of content that it has high engagement and high comments and high likes and yada yada, but at the same time it's not driving revenue. So you're just kind of keeping people entertained and turning into a TV show versus a business trying to make money. Long-winded answer. All right, mistake number 4. The fourth mistake I see, and this is more around the content distribution, is a lot of brands, because they don't have the bandwidth to do it correctly, will literally just copy and paste distribution. They'll take their blog post or their content that they've created, and they'll just blast it across all the different social platforms, the emails that they're sending out. If you're doing advertising to promote an ebook or a white paper, it's all very copy and paste, and it gets you out in the world, but it's not necessarily effective, because, for instance, what works on TikTok and what's appealing there is probably not going to be appealing on Pinterest or LinkedIn. There might be a few exceptions to that, but usually it's like the way you would position content on LinkedIn would be entirely different than how you position it on TikTok, or how you would position it in an email. So copying and pasting distribution when you're promoting your content, trying to figure out ways, and throughout this webinar, I'll share ways to do this better, so that you're not seeing your content with a high engagement on TikTok, but then when you're looking at LinkedIn, it just kind of falls on its face. So stop being clones are cool in Star Wars, but not when it comes to distribution. So at this point, you're probably wondering, okay, I know what to stop doing, but what should I be doing instead? And that's why you're here today, to think about different types of content that you need to create throughout the entire buyer's journey. And I guarantee I'm going to be doing a lot of name dropping on this webinar. So keep your notebooks handy. Like I said, this is going to be recorded, but there's going to be a lot of brands. And I'm not going to be sharing ChatGPT, even though that is one of the more flashier, fancy tools that everybody's like, oh, for content marketing, ChatGPT. But this is the only mention of that this entire webinar. But I will be name dropping a lot of different brands on how to basically create content better and streamline the process of creating content. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So first and foremost, a little context as to content marketing. The idea here is that, like I shared with the 95-5 rule, a lot of people create content at the bottom of the funnel, and it's more so for this evaluation purchase stage. And while you'll be able to engage with the 5% effectively by creating content in those two stages, the reality is that, like I shared earlier, you're going to be going up against a lot of competition, because everybody and their brother that you're competing against, or similar solutions to solving a problem that you're solving, are all going to be going after that 5%. So thinking through the entire buyer's journey, you have your awareness stage, which could be twofold. You could have people that are aware that they have a problem, and it's kind of on the back burner. They're not actively sharing an interest of like wanting to solve the problem. They're just like, all right, this is on my checklist. It's something that I need to get to eventually. It's something that I haven't necessarily looked at solutions. I just know I have a problem. On the kick side of that, there are, from an awareness standpoint, people that are completely oblivious that they even have a problem. They're the types of people that are more so in the camp of this is the way we've always done things. They don't necessarily even realize that there's easier ways to do things, especially from a SaaS provider, that you probably have streamlined something that they're doing. Of the fact of this is how we've always done things. They're not even aware that they have a problem. They're just like, oh, this is how we do this. It's solved. It works. That they're completely oblivious that there might be something out in the world that would make this a lot easier to use. So from an awareness standpoint, that's the two sides of the coin. There's people that are aware that they have a problem, but they're not actively looking for a solution. It's on the back burner. Or people that are completely oblivious that they even have a problem, but in your mind, they have a problem, but they're like, hey, this works. Once people move from the awareness stage, then they have the interest. So again, by the time they get to the interest stage, they're hopefully problem aware, and they're actively looking for solutions. Once they move to the consideration phase, this is where, like, all right, I have the budget, I have the time, I have the resources to put towards this solution, and I'm considering like making a solution soon. Moving on to the evaluation phase, this is where the salespeople come in. This is where, as you can see underneath, from a HubSpot perspective or typical CRMs, you'll have your lead, awareness, interest, MQL, consideration, evaluation, SQL. purchase, deal, opportunity, depending on what you want to call it. And then, of course, support and advocacy would be your customers. So those are your typical stages. But thinking through the buyer's journey, you'll typically see these are a variation of the names. But moving into the evaluation phase, first moment where sales is coming in, this is where you'll have your demo request and doing your comparison, a hard comparison where it's you versus a competitor. What do you guys do well? What do they do well? Help me make a decision on which platform to use. Moving into the purchase, it's more about accepting payments. And then, of course, support advocacy. Your support would be onboarding and support, ongoing support for people engaging in your platform. And then advocacy would kick in once you find people that are champions of your platform, that you're hoping to collect reviews and case studies and maybe have a referral program where they are referring people that then you can kind of create a circle with this. And that's why a lot of times when you're looking at HubSpot now, it's instead of a buyer's journey, they promote the flywheel, because the idea is that once you start getting this moving, that your advocates end up being your champions that promote your brand and potentially jump on webinars with you to explain how they're using your platform, or jumping in conversations with your potential buyers to say, hey, like, instead of the salesperson leading and saying, hey, this is how great we are, you actually invite a customer on the call and they say, hey, they're actually great. Like, this is the results I got in 3 months, if you can find the right advocates. So thinking past the buyer's journey, and this is where a lot of people, I wouldn't consider it a mistake, but a lot of people kind of skip this step. And what they'll start to see is a one conversation throughout the buyer's journey. And it's because they forget, and if this will go to the next slide, there we go. They forget that they're talking to different people within an organization, and what matters to one group could be completely irrelevant to another group. When thinking through creating content, especially for software companies, I typically think of it as though you're advertising or content marketing or promotion, whatever you wanted to do. You're talking to 3 different types of people. And users that are going to be the people that are actually using your platform day in and day out. And what they care about is more so about functionality, ease of use. Is this going to be something that I can learn quick and it's going to make my job easier? Or is it going to be something that's complicated and it actually makes the problem worse? Moving on to the decision maker and the champions, this is more so the firsthand user's manager. And typically they're the decision maker because they're the ones that are managing the budget. The firsthand user might be the person that finds your platform originally because they're looking at ways to do their job easier, but inevitably they're going to have to go to their manager and say, hey, do we have the budget to buy this? The decision maker and the champion, what they're worried about is not so much the ease of use and functionality. Yes, that matters to them, but they're more worried about outcomes. Is this going to be able to allow us to 10x, 50x, 100x our results and outcomes of whatever your platform's promising, versus what my firsthand user is able to do in the 40 hours of their work week? It's outcome focused. It is ease of use because it's like they want to be able to provide their firsthand users, their employees, their subordinates, whatever you want to call them, a means of doing their job easier, so they're less frustrated and able to achieve goals, which then of course allows them to look good because they're getting results and hopefully getting a promotion in the long run. But they don't really necessarily care about the ins and outs of the platform. For them, I mean, especially in the software world, they might be interested in dashboards and reporting and more of the analytics and the data on the back end that your tool is going to provide on what their firsthand users are doing. So it's just a different conversation. And then lastly, the executives and the boards are usually during the content marketing, unless you have a very small organization and you're targeting SMBs, 9 out of 10 times, especially when you get into mid-market and enterprise, you're rarely going to be rarely going to be marketing towards the executives or the board unless your software solution is like tailored for them specifically. Typically, when you see the executives and boards come in is renewals. Really, all the executives and boards are going to care about is every year when you renew a contract with the company you're selling to, they're going to be the ones in the background that are saying, do we really need this tool? Is it actually providing 10x results? And that's where you need to create content around providing your decision makers and champions the validation that your platform is helping them move the needle and serving that up to the champion so that they don't have to go out and find it themselves and create it. You're basically serving it to them so that that renewal, if you're doing a 12-month contract, at the 11th month, you start compiling this together, giving it to your champions so they're armed with all the data they need to show the results of your platform to the executives of board so that they can validate to say, yeah, we need to renew this. But most people, they typically create one stream of content across the board, and it works in some cases, and then in others, it falls flat. Ideally, I would create one evergreen content that's a little more flat, that kind of would cater to typically the first-hand user and the decision maker. But if you have the bandwidth and you start to understand, especially as you're moving through and looking typically at job titles, you could then create two different paths that this is how we need to speak to the first-hand user and get them all excited about using the platform. And this is the path that we need our decision makers and champions to follow, and the content that they need to engage with to be able to make a decision like, hey, this is where you should allocate your budget because it's going to be able to get you the results that you're looking for and make you look good as the department lead. So thinking past the buyer's journey and the buyer's persona, let's literally go through each stage of the journey and start to think about what content to use. And this is where I shared I'm going to be doing a lot of name dropping of the different software that I would suggest using for each piece that will allow you to kind of streamline the process of creating this. Yeah, you could figure it out yourself, but I think for me personally, anytime I can leverage something or even jumping on these different platforms that focus on this particular area of content creation, a lot of them usually have resource libraries or playbooks that you can at least analyze and kind of digest to whatever you're going to home grow to make it better. So first and foremost, we are going to jump into awareness content. So awareness content is, like I shared, a lot of times there's two types of awareness. There's the people that are aware they have a problem and they're just not actively looking or engaging a solution. And then there's the people that are completely oblivious. The reality is like I shared earlier, social media is the modern day soapbox of being able to jump in front of an entire community and saying, hey, this is what I do. Are you interested? Here's my goods and services. Do you want to buy them? Like I shared, social media is a slippery slope. It can turn into entertainment quite quickly. But what's nice is that a lot of the platforms, they're free to use. I mean, you can jump on any of the social media platforms. It has been interesting over the last few years where it seems like the organic reach has been clipped a bit, and unless are boosting posts, you don't necessarily get the engagement or get in front of even the followers. But that's an entirely different conversation. When thinking through and creating awareness content, a lot of times the softwares that I'm using are Repurpose.io. This platform is one of those great ones that I shared earlier where a lot of people, they copy and paste distribution across all the different social channels. So you're promoting a white paper, and the way that you're promoting it on TikTok is the same reason you're promoting on LinkedIn. Probably promoting that white paper, how you're doing it on LinkedIn probably works, but promoting it on TikTok that same way probably doesn't work. Repurpose.io is a great platform that you can kind of upload what you're wanting to promote, and it will kind of digest and segment and break it apart, repurpose it, and kind of give you an end result of what you could and should be sharing on each of the social platforms, potentially how you could promote it, sending an email, or even thinking through how you could promote it if you wanted to throw some paid advertising behind it, whether that be LinkedIn lead magnets or display ads on Google. Kind of helps you build out all of the repurposed content for that. As a HubSpot user, I'm a big fan. Obviously, HubSpot solution provider, but HubSpot Remix is something that they just recently launched. It does the same thing as Repurpose.io. The idea is that you come in there and it's almost like you could come to it with just an idea, and it will help you create landing pages and the emails and the social posts and the banner ads. And it kind of like gives you everything that you would need. And then it even would help you, like if it's a blog post that you're going to be writing, it can help you write the blog. Crazy powerful tool. If you haven't checked it out and you're a HubSpot user, definitely check it out. You have to be on the professional level to get access to Remix, and it would help you create everything that you would need for content marketing. Riverside for social media, as you can see, we're on Riverside. What's nice about this is after I create this webinar, it allows me to create social media clips of the long format webinar. It'll break it down into clips, and then it'll allow me to create the 16:9 version as well as the vertical version, and it uses AI to figure out the best moments of your webinar and creates short clips that then you can upload your Instagram stories or your reels. You can do YouTube shorts, LinkedIn. I don't even know are they video shorts? I don't even know what they call them, but the LinkedIn short videos that then you could promote long form content in short digestible pieces and then push back to the long form content on your website. Opus Clip is very similar to Riverside. Another one is BuzzSumo. So social media, if you're trying to figure out what to share on social media, BuzzSumo is a great platform that you can go to, and it analyzes social media across the fold. And you can go in there and basically see your competitors' top performing content on social media, as well as you can just search a keyword or phrase, and it'll show you the best social media that relates to that, so that you can get an idea of like what you should be sharing on social media to get the same results. Moving past social media, another great awareness content is newsletters. They're coming back. It was crazy during 2020, 2021. This brand called Beehive launched, and they completely flipped the script on newsletters, building them, distributing them, and then even monetizing them on the back end. If you haven't heard of Beehive, check them out. You could integrate it with HubSpot so that as people are subscribing to your newsletters, they get pushed to HubSpot. Vice versa, you could create a registration page on your website to push contact information to HubSpot and then to Beehive, so everything's centralized. But crazy easy newsletter builder. And like I said, in the long run, if you are looking to monetize your newsletter or wanting to do some sponsorships or promotions, they actually have a ad network on the back end that you can share all your analytics about your newsletter and how people are engaging, who is typically subscribed to your newsletter and viewing, so that you can easily attract those sponsors for your newsletters if you're looking for an additional revenue stream for that. Moving past newsletters, podcasts. If you haven't listened to a podcast yet, it's 2024. I feel like everybody and their brother it's the new webinar. I mean, people are still doing webinars. I mean, we're on a webinar right now, but podcasts, I feel like it's the lightweight of it. There's not the structure of building a deck and talking points. I think it is just a lot more like it's more thought leadership and tip of the tongue conversations and content marketing, where it's just two people kind of jumping on. You got a mic in front of you and you're just having a conversation. Like, you don't have the structure. I mean, obviously you're going to have a little bit behind the scenes when you're trying to figure out like, hey, what are we going to talk about? Can you talk to this? But if you doing your education and research correctly, when you're trying to figure out who your guests are, you're probably going to be finding the people that can have a decent conversation. It's just a lot lighter. Spotify for podcasters, it used to be called Anchor.fm. Spotify bought it. Spotify's doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on podcasts right now. It seems like any software around podcasts, Spotify's buying. So they're going to be dipping into that hard. This Spotify for podcasters allows you to record, distribute not only to Spotify, but like iTunes, Google, all your big popular podcast platforms. And like Beehive, it also allows you, they have an ad network on the back end that you could find sponsors for your podcast. If you're looking for guests for your podcast, or you're looking to become a guest on a podcast, a Matchmaker, Podcast Guest, Podmatch, great platforms to jump on that you can either find guests for your podcast or hopefully position yourself as someone that is a thought leader or someone that can talk to something and find a podcast that you could jump on. Thinking through content for the awareness stage, further backlinks and content marketing are your stereotypical. Blogging's still a thing. Everybody says it's dead. Everybody says search is dead. I honestly feel like Google is not going to die on a stake. They're going to pivot. Search engines might change in the way that you're looking at them and how you use them today. It's going to definitely change just because of ChatGPT, I want to say it. But AI platforms are changing the way people are looking for information, but I honestly feel like Google's not going to die on a stake. So backlinks and content marketing are still going to be your bread and butter for awareness content. From a backlinks perspective, if you haven't heard of featured.com, I think it's .com, definitely check it out. It is one of the easiest ways to get you in front of audiences and get mentions and backlinks from brands like Fortune magazine or Google, these crazy large organizations. Featured.com is one of those platforms where these brands will come onto featured.com, they ask questions, and then you can answer them. And as a trade, if they do use your answer in their content, they provide you a backlink, and you can determine whether you want that to go to your personal brand. For instance, mine goes to my LinkedIn profile, but you can also push the citation to your website, and it's not a no follow link, so you could potentially get on Forbes or Inc. These big organizations that then you could throw on your website as seen on Forbes. It's a great way. It's very cost effective. I think when you first join, you actually get 3 answers for free. So jump on, find a question by Forbes and answer it for free, and you could potentially get a backlink to your website. Serpzilla, Spin are very similar. PR Newswire, if you're sending out anything around press releases, and you want a large distribution to a lot of your local government entities, PR Newswire is a great way to get that distributed. It's a flat rate. You give them your press release, and they'll blast it across a whole different network of things. It can actually get thrown on social media as well because they have an influencer channel now, but it can give you a lot of backlinks from a lot of different like organizations, like your local news channels, government entities, etc. Depending on how you want to promote it, there's a whole bunch of different channels that you can distribute across. Thinking through who is backlinking to you and understanding where your backlinks are coming from, SEMrush and Ahrefs are 2 great platforms to understand that. Not only how you're performing from keywords and where your website traffic's coming from, but also your backlinks and the more technical side of SEO. SEMrush, Ahrefs are great for that, for building out the awareness content. Lastly, if you need extra hands for creating content marketing, Superpath, Saspirin, and Scale are 3 great platforms that their niche is literally providing content and creating content for sex brands. Check out all 3 of them. You won't be disappointed. All right, that was a lot, and we are already halfway in. So thinking through the next stage, interest content. This is, again, people that are problem aware and they're actively searching solutions, meaning a lot of times they are probably 9 out of 10 times going to Google unless this changes, which is why that's the 3rd option here. But thinking through interest content, you're going to be doing a lot of retargeting. People visit your website. Depending on what they visit, you show them banners. Again, with this, you can use the HubSpot Remix. But another great platform to use if you're wanting to scale out your banners and don't necessarily have an in-house graphic designer, you can use addcreative.ai. You go in there, give them a prompt, or give them the URL of your asset, and it will create all the banners that you need to be able to promote that across a variety of different channels. Another great interest content play is partnership marketing. This is the idea that you're engaging with influencers or affiliates or people that are complementing your platform that you can create a partnership with, that you promote me, I'll promote you. This is great for that interest content because a lot of these people, again, thinking back to social media via the soapbox, a lot of people, when they are problem aware or interested, they're going to start, like, as they're on social media, and it's because of algorithms, and they start looking and engaging with different content, they're most likely going to come across an influencer or an affiliate that is speaking specifically to the problem that they're trying to solve. By creating partnership marketing, Rewardful is really great if you're using Stripe. PartnerStack, it's an enterprise play, but PartnerStack and HubSpot are customers of one another, so the integration is amazing between them 2. And PartnerStack also has a influencer network on the back end that if you don't necessarily know how to promote yourself to find influencers, if you join PartnerStack, it's going to give you the ability to promote your program to an entire network of influencers that, depending on your rewards and systems for them, they might just join your program and they can get notifications of different people coming in different segments and industries. Another great one is Grin. It's more of the influencer track, but they can help you connect with social influencers. Thinking through, again, interest. I'm problem aware and I'm actively looking to solve, and I just don't have I don't know where to start. They're most likely going to Google search. This is where your AdWords is going to come into play. This is where a lot of the creating content and doing search engine optimization. Two great SEO people, Neil Patel, Brian Dean over at Backlinko. Neil Patel is the in-house SEO guy at HubSpot. Brian Dean, he just became an in-house specialist somewhere, but I can't remember where. But Neil Patel, he's the in-house at HubSpot, so you probably have seen him a lot if you're a HubSpot user. But thinking through interest content, people are coming to Google. This is where your Google AdWords will come into play with search because people are actively looking for a solution. They have an interest for solving their problem. Another great thing here is promoting webinars at the interest stage. It's a great way to promote and start a conversation and get people up to speed. Again, thinking back earlier with the mistakes, webinars are a great way to educate people on the capabilities and promises that you want to make with your platform. Great webinar platforms. Wistia just relaunched a capability to host webinars. Riverside, it's what we're on right now if you're enjoying it. Big Markers, more of an enterprise play. And then, of course, you have your staple Zoom. But webinars are still a great way, especially at the interest stage, that you could promote your webinars on LinkedIn. I think Vimeo might have a way to promote, but you can get people's interest and at least start a conversation. Lastly, from an interest perspective, the content that you need to create is jumping on all the review websites, especially as a SaaS platform. Jumping on G2, Software Advice, Capterra, GitApps, SourceForce, Software Suggest, Trust Radius is going to allow you to get out there. And again, as people are looking to create things, especially even from a Google perspective, you usually go out there and you're like, hey, I'm trying to solve XYZ problem. If it's a SaaS solution, most likely one of these review sites is going to show up higher than everything else. So ensuring that you're on all of these, most of them, it's a free play. So I don't, unless you want to do advertising on them to kind of promote your listing higher, at least you can jump in the conversation. And then in the long run, it's always nice because as you start to build your credibility on these platforms, this is where you start to see all the G2 badges and the Capterras, and we've been in this quadrant. That's all your review sites. So next stage is the consideration. So at this stage, you have made we'll call it March Madness. You made the Sweet 16. You're one of the brands that they are considering to use. At this stage, and this is where I have the most fun building stuff. A lot of the earlier stages, it is content and webinars. It's more long format. At the consideration stages where things start to get exciting and a little more fun. So first and foremost, social proof. If you've ever, everybody likes to do what everybody else is doing. So social proof is a great thing that you can add on your website, that as people are downloading assets or registering for a webinar or becoming a customer would be huge too, especially if you have a volume play. Using platforms like Proof, Nudgify, Wiser Notify, will allow you to have a little pop-up thing that comes on your website that as people are engaging and someone's on a website, they can see what other people are doing. So you can have pop-ups that say, John just became a customer and bought XYZ plan, or Susie just downloaded this white paper, or Robert just download or registered for this webinar. And then it's that social proof that, hey, other people are doing this and it's in real time, that then people, it's clickable, so people will click on it and then they'll get promoted and they're like, all right, I want to do this too because I fear missing out, FOMO, or the bandwagon. Proof, Nudgify, Wiser Notify are great. Noble is a recent software solution that came out. You can see in the bottom right, there's this bar, but what it allows you to do is it will add a bar onto your website or a little widget, depending on what you want to do. And what you're going to do is feed it a list of all of your customers. so that as a potential buyer comes to your website, they'll be able to click a button to say, hey, I want to talk to somebody that is using your platform. Do I know any of your customers? And what it's going to do is when you upload the customer list, it's going to sync, I think using Apollo or Clay or something, it's going to sync their contact data and look for a LinkedIn profile. And then it's going to, when you click this, do I know anybody that's using your platform? It's going to show you LinkedIn connections that are using the platform. And then you can start up a conversation or send out a connection request on LinkedIn. And what this is allowing you to do is allow you to connect your potential buyers with your existing customer, and you're not even doing it. You just kind of set it up with Noble, and they engage all of the conversations and schedule the meetings to have conversations together. You do get a notification of when those happens. I think you get the paid program. Very cool. I talked to the CEO. I haven't personally used it just because, I mean, obviously I'm a smaller agency, so I don't have a lot of volume, so it didn't make sense, but it's something I definitely want to use with the SaaS platform in the near future. Lead magnets, whether you're using them on social media or a pop-up on your website, Hello Bar, OptinMonster, ConvertFlow, you've seen them, you know how they work, but those three platforms will help you build that out. HubSpot, if you're a HubSpot user, you can also build a lead magnet in HubSpot, embed a form and a pop-up, and then have your automation on the back end to send them the content and any of the follow-up that you would want to have done, whether that be requesting a meeting or providing them additional content outside of the lead. You can set up an automation for all of that. Video demos, as you can see in the screenshot, I personally use Storylane, but there are Storylane, Walnut, Super Demo, Howdy Go, Videosa, Wistia. You can do all these video demos. This is great for product marketing. As a product marketer, check these platforms out, because what it's going to allow you to do is, obviously on your website, you're building out all of these product pages for each of the functionalities and features, capabilities, solutions. What would be great is if you could create little mini demos for each of the functionality that you're talking about, that you could literally show this is how you would do this in the platform. And you're creating I use Storylane, that you could either create screenshots and then you have like the clicks, almost like an onboarding situation, or you could do video recordings where you're literally going through the process and they can see firsthand how easy it is to accomplish something using the platform. PDF presentations, I've personally used Turtle. When I was at a Fortune 500 company, they used Path Factory. But this is great because instead of sending over someone, especially like white papers or ebooks, where you send it to them and you have no idea like what happened. Did they open it? Did they click it? Did they read it all? With Turtle and Path Factory, not only will you make the PDF more visual, but you'll get all the analytics that you would get for a website. You can get all the analytics. Did they share this? How often did they open it? Did they open it multiple times? How long were they in it? So you can get all this visibility about, like I said, white papers, ebooks, pitch decks, anything where you're more long format. And then, of course, with Turtle and Path Factory, you can embed videos and more interactive media, polls, quizzes, etc. That there'd be more of an interactive versus just sending a plain blank PDF. And 9 out of 10 times people will get through the first 3 pages and be like, all right, this is too much. I don't want to engage with it. Lastly, from a consideration phase, LinkedIn outreach, Hey Reach and Buy. It's a great way to connect with people, especially if you know your ICP, that you can kind of automate the outreach of LinkedIn, both the connections, engaging on people's posts, as well as any of the conversations that you want to have in the LinkedIn Messenger. Great for consideration and building those initial conversations. Again, because you know your ICP and the buyer personas, you can create conversations in LinkedIn where you're not necessarily saying, hey, I'd love to jump on a meeting with you, but going the long fail of, again, providing education, pushing them back to the interactive demos, more of the awareness content so that you can kind of judge where they're at. Are they actively trying to solve a problem? Are they aware they have a problem? Are they have an interest in solving it now? And then, of course, in this consideration phase, I put this in the consideration just because it's usually a sales play and they typically don't come in till the end of consideration, moving into the evaluation. So evaluation SQL, depending on where we're at in the journey and how you want to name it. Evaluation content, quizzes, assessments, and surveys are great at helping people validate, is this the right platform for me? What am I going to get out of this? ROI calculators. Outgrow and Heyflow, as you can see in the screenshot here, I have a screenshot of Outgrow where they're kind of sharing what could your potential ROI be based on your criteria. Yeah, calculators are great for SaaS brands, especially considering you have all the data on the back end, that you have a good understanding of like how much time am I saving people? How much additional revenue am I helping them generate? Am I helping them generate outcomes that are 10x, 50x, 100x? You have all the data of that then you could determine your averages. So like you don't want to just go out there and share best case scenario, because then everybody has an expectation that they're going to get that best case scenario. So I usually say with these quizzes, take the average or the median and build your calculators out that way. So people have like, hey, like this is on the typical what you'll see using our platform. From a case study perspective, great. That's great evaluation content. HubSpot just released with their Breeze Intelligence a way to use AI to create a case study. What you would necessarily do is jump on a conversation with somebody in Zoom or Google Meet and just start interviewing them. And then on the back end, you can pull all of that conversation into Breeze Intelligence and it'll create the case study for you. And then you can just publish it to, if you're using HubSpot website, just hit publish and it'll get added to your website. Otherwise, you could copy and paste it and format it for your website, but it makes creating case studies like 10 times faster. Check it out. It's a money saver. Okay, our next to last, you got the review wall of love. You've probably seen these a lot and never realized how they're actually building it. A testimonial came out a few years ago. It is probably one of my favorite ways of collecting video and text-based reviews. I literally can set up automations on the back end of HubSpot that, depending on how people score with their NPS or their CSATs or their CSE score or CES scoring, that I could automatically trigger a workflow that if it's a high rating, automatically send them this testimonial link that I can capture their review, whether it be text or video. And then I get a notification that they did it, and then I can hit publish and it automatically gets added to the website. You've probably seen a lot of SaaS brands where they have this wall of love and you're like, why did they call it a wall of love? That was testimonial branding. If you haven't checked out the platform, it's probably one of the most cost-effective ways of collecting reviews. It also allows you to integrate and aggregate all of the review sites. So G2, Capterra, Trusted Advice, Software Advice, Solwers Forge, all of them. You can sync testimonial and all those review sites together so that as people are adding reviews, it'll automatically get pulled in testimonial, and then you can display it on your website within like a few clicks of the button. Makes it a lot easier than copying and pasting and sending something over to your graphic designer and saying, can you make this look pretty so that we can share it? Testimonial, consider done. And then lastly, from an evaluation standpoint, the content you need to create is comparison guides. I typically suggest making these hidden landing pages. Make sure that they're accurate, because they can definitely get you some legal trouble very quickly. But if done right, it's not so much about slamming your competitors, more so as it is for me. It's like, I honestly like positioning, like, this is what the competitor does well, and this is what they don't do well, and this is what we do well, and this is what we don't do well, and then allow them to make a suggestion versus just, this competitor's terrible, go with us. Because it's like, it's framing. It's just being respectful of all the situations. And at the end of the day, it's like, hopefully your platform is better, and it's a no-brainer to say, hey, like, our capabilities outweigh their capabilities, our downfalls aren't that bad, and this is also something that's on our roadmap and that we're looking to develop, that you can cover yourself. But a comparison guide is great to kind of say, hey, this is how we're doing against our competitors, and here's our pros and cons. You can, I mean, if you go to the HubSpot website, you'll see it. I think it's towards the bottom where they're comparing HubSpot to like Go High Level and MailChimp and Salesforce, etc. So it's something that's very effective, especially at the valuation stage where people are trying to understand what they should go with. The next stage, I'm going to just jump right into it. Purchase content. This has been a fun one that has changed a lot over the years. I mean, you used to think about when you were purchasing, it was really just like sign up for a demo or book a meeting with sales, and then you just jumped on Zoom or Google Meet, and that was the extent of what the purchase content was. It was just you talking to somebody. This is by far probably one of the coolest places I've seen a lot of change, especially in the last year. Sales rooms are crazy. Like, I'm a official Arrows partner, so I'm gonna throw them out. But having a sales room where it kind of organizes the entire conversation and all the engagements of all the interactions between you and your potential customer, especially if you have a longer buying cycle, this is gold. You can kind of centralize all the information. You can have next steps. You can have the ability for them to book a meeting. If you have a note taker like Fathom, or like I showed down here, Fathom, Fireflies, or Otter, you can embed all of those notes in the sales room so that the customer can remember everything that we spoke about. You can embed videos, case studies, and it's just kind of this centralized way that allows you to organize all the evaluation content as well as the purchase content and making next steps and making that forward facing, that you just have to share a link, and versus like sharing all of this recap in email that's usually messy and stressful and overwhelming to the customer. Instead, just share them a link to the sales room and consider it done. Arrows, Doc, PandaDoc are three great platforms to create sales rooms. I think Gong's building something. Entirely sure, but I think I saw something on their end too. From a video prospecting, if you're wanting to engage with people and just kind of do follow-ups or recaps or next steps, and you want to create it with a video, Reach Out AI and Loom are great for that. That you can just create these very simple videos that you can then have a link and share. You can edit a little bit on the back end to make it look clean, and then it's all branded. You get all the analytics on the back end so that you can understand how people are engaging with your video prospecting. It's really nice. Of course, then you can embed the videos in your sales room. A sales decks, stop using Google PowerPoint. There's a better way. Sales decks, especially if you want to know how people are engaging with them, if you share them afterwards. Pitch, which is what you're seeing, how I built this webinar, it's on Pitch. And then Beautiful AI is a pitch deck, webinar, PowerPoint presentation, whatever you want to call it, AI builder, where you could literally go in and say, hey, this is what I want to create a presentation about, and it'll create the deck for you. Of course, then you go back and edit it, but it's pretty crazy how fast you could create a deck based on just a prompt. Pitch, I think Beautiful AI as well also has all the analytics, like I showed on the back end, that you can then see, was this pitch deck open? What slides did they look at? Average time on the deck? Did they share it? You get all of that on the back end. So it's a lot better than just sharing like a Google PowerPoint where it's like, I have no idea what happened afterwards. And then, like I already shared, from a meeting recorder, especially if you're on calls, Fathom, Fireflies, Otters, it's a great way that you can record the conversation so that if you want to go back and understand what you agreed to or what you didn't agree to, or any of the situations they were having. What's nice about these recorders is once the meeting's over, it uses AI to analyze the conversation that you had, and it will create a summary of everything that you agreed with. A lot of times it'll create like what the next steps and things that we said that we were going to do next. And then it also pulls out any of the questions. So then you don't have to necessarily be taking active notes as the salesperson. What's great is then you can take these recorders, embed them into your HubSpot, or again, into your sales room so that you can have those conversations available. It's nice. It makes things a lot easier that you don't have to remind yourself. And what's cool, especially with that summary or next steps, is that when you're in these tools, you can literally just copy that and then add it to your email address or your emails that you're sending up as a follow-up. And it's like, it's done. It's super convenient. Next stage, support content. Again, this is something that's relatively new. We've always had customer support, and that's more so when things aren't working or something breaks. A lot of software companies are starting to see that they need to do customer onboarding. This not only helps with retention, it usually drives longer lifetime value, and it also safeguards people churning out in 3 months because they jump on a platform and something else comes up and then they completely forget about your platform, and then it just sits there. By having an active customer onboarding, what it's going to allow you to do is ensure that people get the value out of your platform that you were promising, that they're getting it quickly, that they're seeing wins quickly. And then, of course, that makes it so that come renewal periods, they're not churning out. And of course, then you have your retention and a longer lifetime value, which is great. Again, I'm going to promote Arrows, Doc, and FuseBase are great onboarding platforms. You can see a screenshot here for Arrows. It's nice. They are a premier HubSpot what is the title? They are HubSpot likes them. Like they integrate very, very well. I honestly wouldn't doubt in the long run if HubSpot acquires them and absorbs this functionality into HubSpot, because it is something that you can build all of this out in HubSpot yourself and kind of build out a homegrown solution. But if you want something that's just out of the box and you don't have to worry about HubSpot APIs and all of that, and then just kind of in a few clicks have your onboarding plan available, it's really great. Doc's in the same boat, and then FuseBase is another great SaaS onboarding platform. Building out a knowledge base, again, since inbound, this is a game changer. HubSpot Breeze customer agents. If you haven't heard of them, check them out. What this allows you to do is create a knowledge base with all of your common questions and your onboarding and tutorial videos. And what you're going to do is, using all of that information, you're going to give that access to an AI chatbot, the customer agent. And it's going to be able to, it's basically Chat GPT, but it's only using your content and your knowledge base or any links that you feed it. And it is going to be able to serve up answers and recommendations and basically make your CSM support lives a lot easier. Obviously, there is weight that you need to create the content for the knowledge base, but once it's created, attaching this customer agent and embedding that customer agent in your platform or on the knowledge base will allow people to get the answers that they need and move forward and stop being stuck. Another great thing for support content is customer forums. Hire, Logic Vanilla, and Turf are two great ways that you could create an online community for all your customers to join. You're doing is creating your own social platform that you would have control over, that then you can use for promotions, for upgrades and upsells. But it also allows your community to have a place where they can kind of talk about, like, especially with software companies, it's like your customers are usually a lot of like-minded people. So allowing them to have a community where they can go and engage and learn from their peers, that if it's someone new, they could get up to speed faster, or if it's someone that's more of a veteran that's using things that most people aren't using, but they have a way of not only using your software, but all this other stuff to make their jobs easier. Having this community allows them all to share that effectively. It also typically, like, you could have a customer support channel in this forum where new customers could go in here, and you could have this goes back to your advocacy program that we'll talk about on the next slide. But you could have your really high performing customers in this like customer support channel where new customers can come in here, ask questions, and then these customers could answer the questions for you, which is great, because they might be able to explain things a little better than, especially when you're, as the customer, when you're building that knowledge base, it's like there's a lot of stuff that's in your head that you kind of have some gaps because you make assumptions that people know something that they might not know. By making this customer facing support channel, the customers are the ones actually using the tool that you're providing, and they're a little more, I don't want to say, like, they're a little more knowledgeable about like how it actually works in regards to their everyday life. So they can oftentimes make better correlations or make things easier to digest for a new customer. So that's something you could throw in your customer forum. Lastly, and you see a lot of SaaS brands doing this, is providing certifications, especially if you build out a partner program where you want your partners to be able to get certified in your platform, or you have resellers of your platform that are service providers like HubSpot. You can get HubSpot certifications. So as a solutions partner, I can be like, hey, I am certified as a HubSpot admin. Providing a certification for your SaaS platform could create an entire different revenue channel for you, again, with partner marketing and service providers that could also reduce your in-house costs if you don't want to do the onboarding yourself. Credible is a great platform to create the certifications on. The last stage is advocacy content. So again, going back to, and this is kind of goes back to the evaluation stage, but that case study generator, HubSpot Breeze Intelligence, collecting reviews, testimonial. You can see a screenshot of the wall of love. Advocacy, especially if you find people that are really great customers, you could do user conferences for them, and you could do this either virtually or in person. If you want to go virtual, BigMarketer, Hey Summit, Visibo, and Cvent are great platforms to create a virtual event where you can have like different mini rooms that people join the primary virtual event, but then they can jump out into breakout rooms and round tables based on if you have a software that goes across different departments. They could have different roundtables, but user conferences are really great. I know I've been a few SaaS platforms. We did them in person where we flew out, like everybody flew out to Vegas. Conferences are a great way that you can post achievements. You could promote customers that are doing really, really well and seeing great great results from your platform, which then also allows other people to be like, hey, like I know who I need to reach out to, like how are you using this platform, and it creates a lot more stickiness for your platforms. Again, thinking even through that user conference, celebrating milestones, reach us and do so, and Poster are a great way that you can send out gifts to people that celebrate milestones or become customers or renewals. Thank you for renewing again, here's a small gift. If you want to do swag, Stadium and Printful are great for swag, that you can do all of that on demand, so you don't actually have to have all that swag in a closet and growing dust. Stadium and Printful, everything's on demand, that you can say like, all right, send this hat, send this mug, or you can make it so that your customers can join and like almost like an e-commerce platform and choose the swag they want, and then it automatically gets distributed, and then Printful will just charge you a price, and instead of having that all in a closet. Lastly, from an appreciation standpoint, there's a software company out there called Thanks. It kind of allows you to create handwritten notes at scale that then you can send to people and kind of share appreciation to people for either becoming a customer or being a long-term customer, or if someone shares a referral, you could send them a thanks note, and that will allow you to kind of just, it's the happy feel moments. So that is the content at all of the stages. Thinking through what we learned today. This will also help you when you're thinking about building email nurtures and pragmatic ads. The fact that you have content at each stage of the journey, when you're building your email nurtures or your pragmatic advertising, you're going to be able to be aware of where people are at and what content they need to see next. The idea is that you're Hansel and Gretel following breadcrumbs throughout the woods. And once you start to realize, all right, this content's good for the awareness stage, and this content's good for interest, and this is good for consideration, and this is what we need to collect for the support or advocacy, which actually like helps us build better awareness and interest content. Once you have that all put in place, you have your breadcrumbs, then you can start scaling it out and automating it with email nurtures and again, pragmatic advertising, that you're sharing the right message with the right person at the right time and kind of holding their hand through the entire buyer's journey, automated at scale using HubSpot workflows, that you can basically reduce your CAC, reduce your days to close, and thinking through the support advocacy, you're going to have better retention rates and higher LTV. I mean, it's literally the dream situation. But what that means is that you need content for each of the stages. Again, thinking back to the mistakes where everybody focuses on the 5%, the evaluation purchase, you're going to have a lot of gaps. You're not going to be able to kind of fuel the pipeline with the awareness interest stage. So making sure that you have content that spreads across the entire buyer's journey is going to allow you to do everything at scale and really get into the fun things where you really start seeing that aggressive hyper growth and quick wins. So thinking through today's agenda, I skipped step 4. Thinking through today's agenda, what we learned is we discovered what the buyer's journey is, and more importantly, how different buyer personas go through that journey, what matters to them and what they're trying to solve. Secondly, we discovered the most popular content types throughout the entire buyer's journey. And then building upon that, we discovered what content to use and when. Like I shared for step 4, if you scroll down, if you're probably going to be watching this on demand on the website, scroll down on the page and I'll have the slides on how to measure your content marketing program. And all right, that concludes the webinar on how to create content for the entire buyer's journey. If you have any questions, I'm live on the call and willing to address any questions you may have. If you do want to work with us at Contenofy, reach out to us at nextsteps@contenofy.com or visit the website and book your strategy session. But I think that's going to conclude this webinar. It is a long one. So if you have stuck it out to this point, like, I applaud you and I appreciate you. I know there's a lot of times where I was going around the airport, and you're probably just like land. But if you have made it this far, I commend you. Like I said, if you want to reach out to us at nextsteps@continuify.com to work with us, jump on the website. There's a lot of information. Jump on our YouTube channel. I create a crazy amount of videos explaining different strategies. There's a lot of stuff. I'm a practice what I preach. So I tend to educate a lot that by the time someone actually talks to me and says, hey, I want to work with you, it's typically like a couple conversations, if that, to all right, let's start working together. You seem to know what you're doing. So again, thank you. I appreciate it. Until the next one, I will see you all, guys. I will see you all later. See ya.